The 35th session of the Senate in the second regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. Our colleague, Senator Gregorio B. Hunasan II, will lead the chamber in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ama namin, tulungan niyo po kami upang patuloy na tumupad sa aming sinumpaang tungkulin sa sambayanan. Gabayan ninyo ang aming pagtalakay at paghubog ng mga makahulugang batas. Iparamdam po ninyo sa aming puso at diwa ang buod ng pag-unawa, pagbibigayan at pagdadamayan upang patotohanan ang pagmamahal namin sa inyo at sa kapwa. At sa paggunita po namin sa panahon ng pagsilang ng inyong bugtong anak na si Jesus, ipaalala niyo po sa amin ang buhay na halimbawa ng kanyang pagpapakumbaba at kadukhaan sa mundong ito. At habang lalo naming pinagtitibay ang aming demokrasya, ipabatid ninyo sa amin ang kadakilaan ng pagpapatawad upang makamtan ang mailap at minimithing pagkakaisa, kapayapaan at kaunlaran para sa mahal naming inang bayan. Siya nawa.
Marami pong salamat, Senator Greg Hunasan. The Deutsche Bank Philippine Christian Foundation Children's Choir will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, after which the group will render a song entitled, I Am a Small Part of the World. The Deutsche Bank Philippine Christian Foundation Children's Choir.
Bayang magiliw, perlas sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, guyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pa sisiin, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo'y bugaw. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw na kailan pang may di magdidilim, lupa ng araw ng ating pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pa may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much to the Deutsche Bank Philippine Christian Foundation Children's Choir. The members of the choir are school children from Balot Tondo, beneficiaries of a joint feeding program of the Office of the Central Grace Po and the British Embassy. Thank you very much. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Strada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Drilon.
16 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. The acting majority leader, Senator Bam Aquino, is recognized.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 34th session, 26th of November, 2014, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none. The reading of the journal of session number 34, Wednesday, November 26, is hereby dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Marcos for a administrative matter.
Senator Marcos is recognized. May we, the chair, know the pleasure of Senator Marcos?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator J.V. Ejercito, on the 4th of November 2014, introduced a resolution urging the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the viability of rehabilitating and modernizing the Philippine National Railways for the purpose of considering radical transformation as a thread to curtail congestion. On the 18th of November, it was submitted to the Senate and referred to the Committee on Public Works and Public Services. I believe that it needs to be re-referred to the Committee on Public Services as the primary committee, as this does not strictly fall under the business of the Committee on Public Works.
What does the majority leader say?
I concur, Mr. President.
Okay. The same being consistent with the rules, the motion is carried.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Escudero for another administrative matter.
Senator Escudero is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I move that we elect the following members for the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of the proposed budget of 2015. On the part of the majority, Mr. President, yours truly as Chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Recto, Senator Osmeña, Senator Legarda, and Senator Gingona. And on the part of the minority, upon previous authority given by the acting minority floor leader, Senator Soto and Senator Ejercito. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, the following senators are elected to represent the Senate in the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of General Appropriations Bill. On the part of the majority, Senator Escudero, Senator Recto, Senator Osmeña, Senator Legarda, Senator Gingona. On the part of the minority, Senator Soto and Senator Ejercito. Senator Cis Escudero, as the chair of the Committee on Finance, is hereby designated as the chairman of the Senate Committee.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Before that, the chair recognizes Senator Po. May the chair know the pleasure of the good senator.
Mr. President, I would just like to make a correction. I would just like to make a correction for the record. The Philippine Christian Foundation students that were here that delivered the national anthem is actually not sponsored by our feeding program. This is purely a private supported program by the British Embassy and the British nationals. But they're a fine example of a successful student body that's been supported with a very nutritious food program. That's why their performance in school is commendable. So that's all, Mr. President.
All
Thank
right.
you.
The chair was just manifesting on the record the information fed to him. The chair stands corrected with the appropriate manifestation of Senator Po. The Acting Majority Leader,
Yes, Mr. President. I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
the Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 24 November 2014, it adopted Senate Joint Resolution number 10 as the version of House Joint Resolution number 16 entitled Joint Resolution extending the period for filing of claims for reparation of human rights violations victims under Republic Act number 10368, otherwise known as the Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013.
Archives,
Bills on first reading. Senate number 2468, an act establishing the University of Science and Technology of the Philippines, enhancing the composition of its governing board, expanding industry participation in the university through the amalgamation of the Mindanao University of Science and Technology and the Misamis Oriental State College of Agriculture and Technology, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Sani Angara.
Education, Arts and Culture, Ways and Means, Finance.
Senate number 2469, an act granting hazard pay to regional trial court judges during their incumbency and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Maria Lourdes Nancy Binay.
Justice and Human Rights, Finance.
Senate number 2470, an act mandating the Secretary of Labor Employment to conduct research on part-time employment in lieu of retrenchment. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development.
Senate number 2471, an act banning the importation, manufacture, processing, or distribution in commerce of asbestos-containing products. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Trade, Commerce, Entrepreneurship, Health, Demography, Finance.
Senate number 2472, an act integrating voter education in the junior and senior high school curricula by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Education, Arts and Culture, Electoral Reforms, People's Participation.
Senate number 2473, an act regulating and modernizing the practice of medical technology, medical laboratory science in the Philippines, repealing for this purpose Republic Act numbers 5527 and 6138 and Presidential Decree numbers 498 and 1534, and for other purposes by Senator Gingona III.
Civil Service, Government Organization, Education, Arts and Culture, Finance.
Resolutions. PS Resolution number 1030 expressing the Senate. Resolution expressing the Senate of the Senate to request the President of the Republic of the Philippines and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs to formally inscribe on the agenda for the 70th session 2015 of the United Nations General Assembly the proposal to refer to the International Court of Justice for an advisory opinion the question under international law, what are the legal duties of states to protect humankind of the present and future generations from the climate crisis, by Senator Legarda.
Rules.
PS Resolution number 1031 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the mounting delays of DPWH road projects, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Works.
PS Resolution number 1032 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the report of continuous poaching of green sea turtles in the disputed territory of Balawak, Palawan, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Agriculture and Food, Environment and Natural Resources.
PS Resolution number 1033 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the reported maltreatment and negligence of street children in a shelter in the city of Manila, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Youth, Social Justice, Welfare, Rural Development.
PS Resolution number 1034 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on reports of ingrained practice of corruption among state prosecutors, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations, Justice and Human Rights.
PS Resolution number 1035 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the report that the Philippines should brace for drought in 2015, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Climate Change.
PS Resolution number 1036 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the report that Surigao City is running out of anti-rabies vaccines, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Health and Demography.
PS Resolution number 1037 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the reported proliferation of illegal recruitment incidents via the Internet, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development.
PS Resolution number 1038 directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation in the report that 30 government-owned and controlled corporations have been told to return to the state treasury close to 1.6 billion pesos in allowances, retirement pay, and other fringe benefits unlawfully given to their employees, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Finance, Government Corporations and Public Enterprises.
Communications, letters from the Public-Private Partnership Center submitting to the Senate a copy of the signed concession agreement of the LRT1 CAVEX project, including all its schedules in compliance with revised implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act No. 7718, otherwise known as the amended Build, Operate, and Transfer Law, and copies of the Build, Operate, and Transfer Contract of the Mactan Cebu International Airport Project in compliance with Section 14.4 of the revised implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act No. 7718, otherwise known as the amended Build, Operate, and Transfer Law.
Public Works.
Letter from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas submitting to the Senate a copy of the status report on the Philippine financial system covering the first semester of 2014 in compliance with Section 39C, Article 5 of Republic Act 7653, the new Central Bank Act.
Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
Letters from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas transmitting to the Senate copies of the following certified and authenticated BSP issuances in compliance with Section 15A of Republic Act No. 7653, the new Central Bank Act, Circular Letter No. 2014-54, 55, 57, 58, 59, and 60, dated 8, 13, 16, 2021, and 28 October 2014, Circular numbers 852, 853, 854, 855, and 856, dated 21 and 29 October 2014, and Memorandum numbers 2014-041, dated 24 October 2014.
Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
And letter from the Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs submitting to the Senate a copy of the report to Congress on assistance to nationals for the period January to June 2014 pursuant to Section 33 of Republic Act No. 8042, otherwise known as Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995 as amended by Republic Act No. 10022 in CD digital format.
Committees on Labor, Employment, Human Resources Development, Foreign Relations. The Acting Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2414 and House Bill number 4536 on the Philippine Fisheries Code, and copies of the report have been distributed to the senators. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider the aforesaid Conference Committee report.
Any objection? Hearing none. A consideration of the bicameral Conference Committee report is on House Bill number 4536 and Senate Bill 2414 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Cynthia Villar, to present the bicameral Conference Committee report.
Senator Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, your Senate panel of the Bicameral Conference on the disagreeing provisions of the Senate Bill 2414 and House Bill number 4536 is pleased to report that we have come up with a reconciled version and which we are submitting today for ratification by the body. Mr. President, for the information of my colleagues, may I just cite some of the salient points of the reconciled bill. Number 1, the identification of prohibited acts under proposed Section 86 to 128 was taken from the Senate version, with the corresponding administrative and criminal penalties adopted mostly from the House version, but the imprisonment provisions were taken from the Senate version. The liability of the owner or operator for vessels caught violating a prohibited act was confined to administrative liability, and the confiscation of vessels as a penalty, except for poaching, was removed. The monetary penalties for illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in the high seas and waters of other coastal states were set at 2 million to 9 million pesos for small-scale commercial fishing, 10 million to 15 million pesos for medium-scale commercial fishing, 16 million to 20 million pesos for large-scale commercial fishing vessel below 750 gross tons, and 25 million to 45 million pesos for large-scale commercial fishing vessel 750 gross tons and above. These amendments are reflected in Section 88, 89, and 90. This is envisioned to deter illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and will make the Philippines compliant to its obligation under the international conventions and bilateral agreements. On the establishment of a Fisheries Management Fund, the Senate proposal was adopted. Instead, however, of being a special account in the National Treasury, the fund will be a special account in any government financial institution and administered by BIFAR. On the powers and functions of BIFAR, it will now be authorized to implement rules and regulations on conservation and management of straddling and migratory fish stocks, provided that this is done with the coordination of local government units and Fishery and Aquatic Resources Management Council. On administrative adjudication, the creation of the Adjudication Committee as proposed in the Senate version was adopted to be composed of 5 members. That will be all, Mr. President. May I then move that we ratify the reconciled bill as submitted, Mr. President.
There is a motion that the Senate adopts the bicameral conference committee on the disagreeing report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2414 and House Bill 4536, including the reconciled bill as attached to the committee report. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the bicameral conference committee report is hereby adopted or notified.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize...
Thank you, Senator Villar. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Please proceed.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we recognize the Philippine Associations of Water Districts, who are our guests today in the Senate.
Philippine Association
Of Water Districts.
of Water Districts. The Philippine Association of Water Districts is recognized, and the presence of the officers are made of record.
Mr. President, I'd also like to recognize our 3 guests in the VIP areas there in the back. Ms. Langka Dahum, the OIC of the National Museum branch in Holosulu, Ms. Manahan Sadala Sabdani, and Marcena Dahan, who are both master weavers, who are accompanying the National Museum OIC today.
The presence of our guests are acknowledged and made of record. Salamat po. Thank you very much.
We also have, Mr. President, visitors from the Verdant Acres Village Association from Las Piñas, headed by Ms. Dolly Ochoa, who are also here.
The officers of Verdant Acres Village Association, Inc., headed by Dolly Ochoa, is recognized. Their presence is made of record.
I move for a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspension for 1 minute. Session is resumed. The acting majority leader, Senator Sonny Angar, is recognized.
Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we take up some administrative matters. Specifically, we move to designate Senator Cynthia Villar, Sergio Osmeña III, and Joseph Victor Ejercito as members of the Senate panel on the Bicameral Conference Committee on the conflicting provisions of Senate Bill 2400, entitled An Act Promoting and Supporting the Competitiveness of the Sugarcane Industry, establishing the Sugarcane Industry Development Fund, and for other purposes, and House Bill 4633, entitled An Act Strengthening the Policy Framework for the Development of the Sugarcane Industry, establishing the Sugarcane Industry Development Fund, and reconstituting the Board of Directors of the Philippine Sugar Corporation. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of the bills mentioned on the record by the acting majority leader is hereby approved.
Mr. President, there being no other matters to take up, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock p.m. of Wednesday, December the 3rd. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none. Session is adjourned until December 3, 2014, December 2 being a holiday in Pasay City. Session is adjourned until December 3 at 3 p.m.